The great hall of the galactic conquered was silent. 2,000 species had sent there. Leaders to this place, they came from every corner of the galaxy. Some had wings, some had scales, some were made of living crystal. They all sat in a circle that stretched for miles, and they all watched Commander Al step forward to speak. Al was his people were tall and strong, covered in dark armor like skin. They had conquered 50 star systems. They believed they were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Al stood proud as he looked at the assembly. The humans have 17 colonies, he said. His voice echoed through the hall. 17 small worlds filled with resources we need. Their ships are slow. Their weapons are primitive. They hide in their corner of the galaxy like frightened animals. I asked the conquered for permission to take what is rightfully ours. A murmur spread through the crowd. Many species nodded. The humans were newcomers to space. They kept to themselves. They had no allies. They seemed weak, but then an old voice spoke from the shadows. No, everyone turned to look. Elder of the slowly rose from his seat. He was ancient beyond measure. His body was soft and gray with many tentacles that trembled as he moved. There were the oldest species in the conquered. They had traveled the stars when most other species still lived in caves. Al laughed. The old one speaks. Tell me, Elder, why should we fear these humans? Have you seen their tiny ships? Have you counted their small numbers? Did not answer right away. Instead, he pressed a button on his chair. The lights in the hall dimmed. Hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed ancient images broken and unclear, burning planets destroyed, fleets, dead worlds floating in empty space. I will tell you a story, said a story that every species in this room should know, but most have forgotten. The assembly grew quiet. 12,000 years ago, there was an empire called the Supremacy. They were powerful. They had 1 million warships. They controlled a quarter of the galaxy. They feared nothing, and no one moved his tentacle. And the hologram changed. It showed a blue and green planet Earth, the found this world during what the humans call their Bronze Age. The humans were primitive then. They had no technology. They had no space travel. They were just animals with sharp sticks. The thought. Al crossed his arms. And what happened to these mighty? They took humans, continued thousands of them. They brought them to their laboratories. They wanted to study them, to experiment on them, to understand what made them survive on such a dangerous world. Hologram showed images of Earth, volcanoes, earthquakes, massive storms, deadly predators with sharp teeth, tiny creatures that cause terrible diseases. The humans evolved on a death world. Said everything on their planet tried to kill them, the weather, the animals, the plants, even the smallest living things in their water and air. And yet they survived. They did more than survive. They conquered their world. This is ancient history, Al said. What does it matter? It matters because they made a mistake. Voice grew dark. They thought the humans were weak because they were primitive. They did not understand that primitive does not mean helpless. They did not understand what humans really are. The hologram changed again. It showed worlds burning, their great cities crumbling to dust, their fleet scattered across space like broken toys. Within 300 years, the supremacy was gone, not defeated, not conquered, gone, erased from existence. Their worlds are empty now. Their people are extinct. No one knows exactly what happened. There are no records, no survivors, only warnings. Pressed another button. The hologram showed messages written in dozens of dead languages. All of them said the same thing in different ways. Do not go to Saul. Do not touch the humans. Do not wake the sleeping predators. Every species that encountered the humans in those ancient times left the same warning, said every single one, and then those species disappeared too, one by one, until only the warnings remained. Al stepped forward. His eyes were angry. You expect us to believe this? Old stories and broken recordings. The humans have been in space for only 800 years. If they were so dangerous, why have they not attacked us? Why do they hide? Because they do not want to fight, said softly. They never wanted to fight, but when they are forced to. He shook his head. I have studied them, Commander. I have watched their history. They are not like us. They do not fight for territory or resources. They fight when they are threatened, and when they fight, they do not stop until their enemy is completely destroyed. Enough, Al shouted. I will not listen to the fears of an old fool. They are warriors. We have 10,000 warships ready to strike. The humans have a few hundred patrol frigates. This will not be a war. It will be an extermination. He turned to the assembly. I call for a vote. Who supports the invasion of human space? Watched as the votes came in. Species after species raised their approval. They saw the resources. They saw the opportunity. They did not see the danger. The vote passed. The invasion was approved. Al smiled. The Armada leaves at dawn. In 1 month, the human colonies will belong to us. He walked out of the hall, followed by his officers. The assembly began to break apart. Species talked excitedly about the coming conquest. They made plans to divide the spoils. Only remained still his aide, a young named Ani, swam to his side. Elder, what should we do? Looked at the hologram, still floating in the center of the empty hall. The warnings from dead species, the messages from extinct civilizations. Send word to our people, he said quietly. Tell them to leave the inner systems. Tell them to go to the outer rim, as far from human space as possible. But Elder, the journey will take years. Our people will not understand. Finally turned off the hologram. The hall fell into darkness. They will understand soon enough, he said. They have woken something that should have been left sleeping. What comes next? He closed his ancient eyes. What comes next? No one should witness. The galaxy will learn why those warnings exist. And may the stars have mercy on us all. Because the humans will not. He moved slowly toward the exit, his tentacles dragging on the cold floor behind him. The great hall of the galactic Concord stood empty and dark. In 1 month, Commander Al would reach human space. He would not return. None of them would. The Armada dropped out of faster than light travel, like a storm arriving without warning. 10,000 warships filled the space around 442b, the largest human agricultural colony. Admiral E stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, and smiled at what he saw. The planet below was green and blue, covered in farms and small cities. Orbital scans showed a population of 4.2 billion humans. They had families down there, children, lives that they had built over centuries. They did not care about any of it. What defenses do they have? He asked his tactical officer. A few hundred satellites, Admiral. Some patrol Frigates, nothing that can threaten us. He laughed. The elder had warned them. About the humans, he had shown them ancient recordings and told them scary stories, but this was reality. The humans were exactly what they appeared to be, a primitive species with primitive technology. Open a channel to the planet, he ordered. Tell them they have 1 hour to surrender. If they refuse, we will begin our attack. The message was sent. Waited 1 hour passed, no response came. He was not surprised. Primitive species often needed to be shown the reality of their situation before they understood it. He pointed at the main screen where a coastal city glowed with lights. Fire on that city, he said. Low power enough to destroy a few buildings. Show them what we can do. Dreadnought moved forward, its main cannon charged with blue energy. The beam fired, cutting through space toward the planet below, and then something impossible happened. The beam stopped. It simply froze in the atmosphere, hanging in the air like a solid object. For a moment, everyone on the bridge stared in confusion. Then the beam turned. It bent in a direction that made no physical sense. It shot back into space and struck the dreadnought that had fired it. The explosion was massive. The dreadnought broke apart in seconds. Debris scattered across space as 3,000 soldiers died in fire and vacuum. He gripped the arms of his chair. What happened? What did they do? Before anyone could answer, every screen on every ship in the fleet flickered. A face appeared, a human woman with dark hair and calm eyes. She looked bored, like this was something she had done many times before. I am director of the Tan Defense Initiative, she said. Her voice was soft, but it carried a weight that made E's blood run cold. You were warned. The galaxy gave you every chance to leave us alone. Your conquered elders told you stories. They showed you records. They begged you not to come here. She tilted her head slightly. But your kind never learns, so now we teach. Every system on the eternal conquest went dark. The engine stopped. The weapons went offline. Life support flickered and died. Emergency lights failed to activate. The ship was dead in space, and so was every other ship in the fleet. He tried to speak, but his voice would not come. In the darkness, he heard sounds, strain sounds, movement in the walls, not outside the ship. Inside, something was moving through solid metal as if it were water. Director continued speaking. Her face still glowed on the emergency screens, the only light in the darkness. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. Predators hunted us from above. Predators hunted us from below. Diseases waged tiny wars inside bodies. Our own planet froze us, burned us, drowned us, and shook the ground beneath our feet. And we survived. We did more than survive. We became the thing that monsters fear. A scream echoed from somewhere deep in the ship. Then another, then 100 more. You wanted to see what we are, said. Watch closely. This is your only lesson. Ed watched as his crew began to disappear. A tactical officer was pulled through wall by something invisible. A weapons specialist vanished into the floor. His screams cut short. One by one, the bridge were taken by things that moved too fast to see. A young officer ran to East side. Admiral, what do we do? What are they? He had no answer. He had commanded the fleet for 30 years. He had conquered planets. He had destroyed enemy armadas. He had never felt fear like this. Send a message to the conquered, he whispered. Tell them what is happening. Tell them to. Young officer was gone, pulled into the ceiling without a sound. E was alone on his bridge. The screens around him showed the same scene playing out on every ship in his fleet. Soldiers running through dark corridors, chased by things they could not see. Crews screaming as they were dragged through walls. Commanders begging for mercy that would not come. Director's face still watched from the screens. She had not moved. She had not blinked. She simply observed like a scientist watching an experiment. They made the same mistake you did, she said. They saw our primitive technology and thought we were weak. They did not understand that we let ourselves appear weak. We have had faster than light travel for 2,000 years. We have watched your conquered grow and fight and spread across the stars. We hoped you would be better than the species that came before. She shook her head slowly. You are not better. You are the same. You see something different, and your first instinct is to destroy it. You cannot imagine a species that does not want to conquer. You cannot understand a people who just want to be left alone. He fell from his chair as the ship tilted. The gravity was failing. He floated toward the ceiling, surrounded by the bodies of his crew. Most of them were not dead. They had simply been taken somewhere else, somewhere he did not want to imagine. I will give you a gift, said. You will be the only one to escape. You will return to your conquered. You will tell them what you saw here, and you will deliver a message. For me, a small emergency pod appeared beside E. It opened, inviting him inside. Run, said. Run back to your masters. Tell them the humans are coming, not with armies, not with fleets. We do not need such things. Tell them to look at the shadows in their rooms. Tell them to listen to the silence in their ships. Tell them that we are already there, watching, waiting. Her eyes finally showed emotion. It was not anger, it was sadness. Tell them they should have listened to the warnings. He pulled himself into the pod as it sealed around him and launched into space. He took one last look at his fleet. 10,000 warships hung dead in the void. No lights, no movement, no life. His final transmission to the conquered was a single word screamed into the darkness. Run, but he knew even as he fled that running would not save them. Nothing would save them. The humans had been sleeping. Now they were awake, and the galaxy would burn. The message from Admiral E spread across the galaxy like a disease. Species that had laughed at the warnings now watched the recording with growing terror. 10,000 warships gone in a single night. No battle, no resistance, just darkness and screaming. And then silence. The Dominion refused to accept defeat. Supreme Commander L gathered every ship his people had left. 400,000 warships formed a wall around the home system. They created defense platforms. They deployed billions of soldiers. They built weapons that could crack planets in half. Let them come, L announced to his people. We will show these humans what happens when they face the true might of the he was a fool. They were all fools. The humans did not come with ships. 3 days after the defenses were completed, L was found dead in his personal chamber. The room was locked from the inside. Guards stood at every entrance. Security systems showed no one entering or leaving, but L was dead, his body arranged neatly on his bed as if he had simply gone to sleep and never woken up. On his chest, someone had placed a small card. It said, "Only you were warned." The next night, 17 generals died in the same way. Different planets, different systems. All locked rooms, all impossible deaths. All with the same card, panic spread. Through the military, soldiers refused to sleep. Officers surrounded themselves with guards every moment of every day. It made no difference. The deaths continued. One by one, the leadership was erased. The galactic conquered. Watched in horror, representatives gathered in emergency sessions, screaming at each other, demanding answers that no one had. How were the humans doing this? How were they killing leaders in locked rooms on distant planets? How could anyone fight an enemy that could reach them anywhere? Elder had already fled with his people to the outer rim. Before he left, he sent one final message to the conquered. I told you, we all told you, you did not listen. There is nothing more to say. Then, without warning, a human appeared in the conquered assembly hall. No ship arrived, no door opened. One moment the center of the hall was empty. The next moment a woman stood there as if she had always been there. She was short and slim, with gray hair and kind eyes that did not match the terror she represented. I am, she said. Her voice was soft, but it filled the massive hall. Without effort, I am here to deliver humanity's terms. Guards rushed toward her from every direction, weapons charged. Soldiers screamed orders. Ambassador did not move. She simply waited. The first guard to reach her passed through her body as if she were made of smoke. He stumbled and fell. Confused, other guards tried to grab her. Their hands found nothing. She was there, but she was not there. She was solid, but she was not solid. She was impossible. Your weapons cannot touch me, said calmly. Your soldiers cannot harm me. I am here as a courtesy. The humans could have simply destroyed your conquered without warning. Instead, we offer you a choice. The hall fell silent. 2,000 species watched the small human woman with fear in their eyes. These are our terms, continued. First, the Dominion will disarm completely. They will destroy every weapon and disband every military force. Second, every species that voted to invade human space will pay reparations. The amount will be calculated based on your resources. Third, you will establish a demilitarized zone of 500 light years around human space. No ships, military or civilian, will enter this zone without our permission. A representative pushed through the crowd. His name was, or a cousin of the Supreme Commander who had been killed the night before. His eyes were wild with rage and grief. You dare make demands of us, he shouted. You murder our leaders like cowards in the night, and then you come here asking for surrender that will never bow to you. He pulled a ceremonial blade from his belt and lunged at Ambassador. The blade moved faster than the eye could follow, aimed directly at her heart, caught the blade between two fingers. She did not even look at, or as she did it, her eyes remained on the assembly. There will be no negotiation, she said, as if nothing had happened. You have one soul, or weak to accept our terms. If you refuse, what happened to your fleet will seem merciful compared to what comes next. She released the blade or stumbled backward, his weapon bent at an impossible angle. One repeated, then she was gone, not walking away, not transported by technology. Simply gone, as if she had never existed. The assembly erupted in chaos. Species screamed at each other. Some demanded immediate surrender. Others called for war. The swore revenge. The warrior Species of the conquered beat their chests and proclaimed that they would never bow to any enemy. In the end, the vote was held, the decision was made. The galactic conquered would fight. They believed that their combined forces could overwhelm any enemy. They had 12 million warships. They had 80 trillion soldiers. They had weapons that had conquered 1,000 civilizations over 50,000 years. Surely they thought no single species could stand against such might. Elder received word of the decision on his ship far from conquered space. He read the message 3 times. Hopping, he had misunderstood. He had not. They chose war, he whispered to his aide Ani. After everything they saw, after everything they were told, they chose war. What will happen now? Elder closed his eyes. He was old. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched species evolve and species go extinct. But he had never felt such despair. Humans have been holding back, he said. Everything they have done so far was restraint. They killed 10,000 ships. Without firing a weapon, they murdered leaders in locked rooms across the galaxy, and that was them being gentle. He turned to look out the window at the distant stars. Now the conquered has forced their hand. Now the humans will stop holding back, and when they do, he could not finish the sentence. Ani waited, but the elder said nothing more. There was nothing more to say. Across the galaxy, the conquered mobilized for war. Ships gathered, soldiers prepared. Leaders made speeches about victory and honor and the glory of battle. They did not understand what they were facing. They would learn, and when they did, it would be too late. The largest fleet in galactic history gathered at the edge of human space. 12 million warships from 2,000 species stretched across the void. Like a metal sea, Grand Admiral stood on the bridge of the command vessel, a ship so large it had its own weather systems. He looked at the endless rows of warships and felt confident. Today we show the humans what the galaxy can do when it works together, he announced to his officers. Their tricks will not save them. Their technology will not protect them. We have the numbers. We have the weapons. We have the will to fight. His fleet commanders reported in from across the armada. 80 trillion soldiers stood ready for combat. Planet cracking weapons were charged and aimed. The combined might of 50,000 years of galactic civilization pointed at one small star system, saw the human home. The fleet moved forward, faster than light. Engines engaged. In hours they crossed the void between stars. When they dropped back into normal space, the humans' home system lay before them. And there was nothing. Admiral stared at his sensors in confusion. No defense platforms orbited the planets. No warships blocked their path. Earth itself floated in space, blue and green, and completely unprotected. Just a single world with 28 billion humans living their daily lives. It is a trap. Said scan everything, find their hidden weapons. His officers scanned. They searched, they found nothing. Earth had no defenses. The humans had not prepared for war at all. Perhaps they know they cannot win. A commander suggested. Perhaps they plan to surrender. No, shook his head. The humans do not surrender. They are planning something. Be ready for anything. The fleet advanced slowly, carefully. They crossed the outer boundary of the system, passing frozen worlds and fields of asteroids. They moved past the gas giants, enormous planets that could swallow a H100 red Earths. Still nothing. attacked them. Then they reached the belt, a ring of ice and rock at the edge of the inner system, and reality broke. The first sign was silence. Every communication channel went dead at the same moment. No static, no interference. Just absolute nothing, as if sound itself had stopped existing. Then the stars began to move. Ships reported seeing impossible things. Stars that should have been fixed in space started drifting. Some moved closer, some moved away, some simply vanished as if someone had reached up and turned them off like lights. A cruiser from the methane collective suddenly aged 1,000,000 years. In 3 seconds, its crew did not even have time to scream. The ship crumbled to dust while the vessels around it watched. In horror, 3 dreadnoughts from the crystalline empire tried to turn and retreat. They flew into a fold in space that should not have existed. When they came out the other side, they were flying backward through time. Their final transmissions arrived before they entered the fold, messages of confusion and fear playing on an infinite loop across every frequency in the galaxy. Admiral gripped his command chair as his ship shook. What is happening? Report. But his officers could not report. They were frozen in place, stuck in a single moment of time while moved freely. He watched in helpless terror as gravitational waves crushed a battleship into a ball no larger than his fist. He saw a carrier simply disappear, edited out of existence, as if it had never been built. Director's voice filled every ship in the fleet. She sounded almost sad. You think in terms of ships and soldiers, she said. You measure power in weapons and armies. You cannot imagine any other way to fight, but we stopped thinking that way a long time ago. 1,000 ships were pulled into a black hole that appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. Their crews fell forever into infinite darkness. We think in terms of physics, probability, the fundamental forces that hold your atoms together. We learned how to ask the universe to change its rules. And the universe, it turns out, is very good at listening. Watched as reality twisted around his fleet. Ships were stretched across dimensions like rubber bands. Crews found themselves existing in 2 places at once, their minds shattered by the experience. Some vessels were simply unmade, their atoms scattered across light years in an instant. We asked the universe nicely to stop being so hospitable to you. Continued. It agreed. The command vessel shook violently, was thrown from his chair. Around him, his crew began to phase in and out of existence, flickering like broken lights. Some of them were screaming. Some of them were laughing. Some of them were doing both at the same time. Of 12 million ships, only a few hundred remained. They tried to flee, but space itself seemed to fight against them. Faster than light, engines tore ships apart when activated. Normal engines pushed vessels in random directions. Escape pods launched into solid walls of folded space. In the end, only 300 ships escaped. They carried no tactical data. They had no recordings of human technology. They had only the memory of what they had witnessed, memories that would haunt them forever. Admiral found himself alone in an escape pod. His flagship was gone. His crew was gone. His fleet was gone. He drifted through the debris of the greatest military force the galaxy had ever assembled, and he wept like a child. His pod floated past Earth. Through his small window, he could see the surface of the human cities sparkled with light. Oceans reflected the sun, and in A park somewhere on the surface. Children were playing. One of the children looked up, knew this was impossible. The child was millions of miles away. There was no way she could see him, but she looked directly at his pod, directly at him, and she waved. Began to scream. He screamed until his voice broke. He screamed until he had no air left in his lungs. He screamed because he finally understood what the humans were. They were not warriors. They were not conquerors. They were something far worse. They were the universe's answer to every species that thought might made right. They were the punishment waiting at the end of every empire's arrogance. They were the reason the warnings existed, the reason ancient species had carved messages into stone and broadcasted them across the stars. They were the end, and they had been waiting for this moment for 12,000 years. As his pod drifted away from Earth, saw the human child return to her game. She was laughing, playing with her friends, completely unaware of the destruction that had just occurred in her sky. Or perhaps she was fully aware. Perhaps they all were. The thought made scream again, and this time he did not stop. 6 months passed after the battle of Saul. The galaxy was unrecognizable. The Dominion no longer existed. Their worlds were empty, their people scattered across refugee camps in distant systems. Every species that had voted for war had surrendered completely. The galactic conquered, which had ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years, had collapsed in a matter of weeks. No one spoke of revenge anymore. No one spoke of resistance. The galaxy had learned the lesson that 12,000 years of warnings had tried to teach. Do not attack the humans. On a small moon at the edge of explored space, Elder sat in his chamber and waited. His people had survived because they had listened to his warnings. They had fled before the war began. Now they lived in quiet isolation, far from anyone who might draw human attention. A message arrived, for a human ship was approaching. Ambassador requested a meeting. Aid on E was afraid. Perhaps we should refuse. She said perhaps we should hide. There is no hiding from the humans, replied. If they want to speak with us, we will speak with them. If they want to destroy us, we cannot stop them. Either way, running is pointless. The human ship arrived an hour later. It was small and simple, nothing like the massive warships of the conquered. Ambassador came alone. She walked through the colony with her hands visible and empty, a gesture of peace. That seemed almost funny considering what her species had just done. Met her in a small garden filled with plants from 100 different worlds. They sat across from each other, the ancient alien and the small human woman, and for a long moment neither of them spoke. I remember you, finally said. You spoke against the invasion and the conquered assembly. You showed them the warnings. You tried to save them. They did not listen, replied. They never listen. Nodded slowly. No, they never do. She looked around the garden. Her eyes were tired, heavy with something that might have been grief. We never wanted this, she said. I know you will not believe me. I know you think we are monsters. But we never wanted any of this. Studied her carefully. Then why do you have the power to destroy fleets with a thought? Why do you have technology that breaks the laws of physics? If you wanted peace, why prepare for war? Was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. 12,000 years ago we were nothing. We had barely discovered fire. We thought the stars Were gods looking down at us, and then they came, she closed her eyes, they took thousands of us, families, children. They put us in cages and experimented on us like animals. They wanted to understand how we survived on our death world. They cut us open, they tested diseases on us. They broke us apart to see how we worked. Her hands trembled slightly, but they made a mistake. They underestimated how quickly we learn, how we adapt, how we survive. Some of us escaped, we took their technology, we studied it, we improved it, and when we were ready, we went back for our people and destroyed the said, yes, opened her eyes, we gave them a chance to surrender. They laughed at us, so we showed them what we had become. We showed them what happens when you push a death world species to the edge of extinction. We became the monster they feared because that was the only language they understood. She leaned forward. After they were gone, we swore we would never let it happen again. We spent thousands of years developing technology that would make us untouchable. We hid our true capabilities. We pretended to be primitive so that stronger species would ignore us. All we wanted was to be left alone, but we did not leave you alone. Said, no, you did not. Shook her head. Though we're not special, others came before them. We tried to warn them all. We left messages in every language. We helped species secretly, hoping that if we were kind enough, they would eventually understand, but they never did. Every time we showed mercy, they saw weakness. Every time we offered peace, they planned invasion. She stood and walked to a window. Outside, stars filled the darkness. We are tired, Elder. We are so tired of being feared. We are tired of being attacked. We are tired of having to destroy entire civilizations just to protect our children. But we do not know how to stop. Every time we try to be gentle, someone sees it as an invitation to hurt us, rose from his seat and moved to stand beside her. Then what happens? Now, he asked, your enemies are defeated, the galaxy is silent. What do the humans want? Turned to look at him. For a moment she seemed very old and very sad. We want what we have always wanted, she said. Friends, neighbors, species that see us as people instead of threats or opportunities. We want to share what we know to help others grow, to build something together instead of alone. She smiled, but there was no joy in it. We want someone to prove that we were wrong, that not every species will attack us, that kindness is possible, even in a galaxy full of predators. She reached out and placed her hand on tentacle. Her touch was warm and gentle. You tried to save them, Elder. You stood alone in that assembly and told them the truth. That gives me hope. Not much, but enough. Felt something shift inside him. Fear and hope and sorrow all mixed together. What would you have us do? He asked. Life said, grow, learn, and when you are ready, come find us. Not to trade, not to negotiate, just to talk, just to sit together and share stories and prove that two species can exist without trying to destroy each other. She released his tentacle and walked toward the door. We will be waiting, she said. We have been waiting for a very long time. We can wait a little longer. Then she was gone. 100 years later, a young child sat in a garden on that same moon. Her name was, and she was curious about everything. Elder, she said to her grandmother, tell me about the humans. The old showed her a picture, a blue and green world circled by silver moons that had not been there before. They are still there, she said. Watching, waiting, are they our enemies? The old thought about ambassador, she thought about elder who had died peacefully decades ago, she thought about all the species that had attacked the humans and been destroyed, and all the warnings that had been ignored. They are our potential, she finally said. They are what we might become if we are brave enough, if we are kind enough, if we survive. Looked at the picture of Earth for just a moment. She thought she saw one of the artificial moons blink across the galaxy. The warning still echoed. It was carved into monuments. It was written in the stars. It was whispered by parents to children in every language. Never attack the humans, not because they will destroy you, but because once they do, you will finally understand why they tried so hard not to.